Ron, because he has a good collection of art and is very familiar with Smith's process, and in particular, how he came to sculpting and the firing process and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Probably the sculpture I know a bit more about, but background. Smith really started in the early 20s, and just because he wanted to, he was multi-creative, and I think he just had visions that he needed to express. He started drawing and painting, and very, very limited, as far as material goes. I have pieces of paper where he would draw on the front, he would draw on the back, anything that was available. Of course, being poor also. He used crayons, he used pencils, whatever he had was good enough to express himself. He did some of his more well-known paintings were done on a black background. One of his mother's thrown out dresses. So, whatever they had was what he used. And I'll bounce ahead because I'll let these guys go, but I'll focus on sculpting just for a moment. And this, again, to the beginning, this is reputed to be his first attempt at sculpting. This is a chunk of basalt. It's heavy, it's hard. He must have chiseled this out. And I believe that he started this, the sculpting after his mother's death, just as something to keep himself preoccupied. But here he is in all his glory. This actually, I don't know if you can see this, there's lichens growing on this piece of rock that he left on his fence along with the other boulders for years and years until was infected by its bad neighbors. And so there's got lichens growing on it. After he chiseled this chunk of rock out, he must have thought there must be a better way, because this was just, incredible amount. I mean, look at that, and at some point he visited his Uncle Ed Gaylord, who had a copper mine down in Lincoln. It's still there, Calaga Springs Road. And there, they didn't find much copper. His uncle sold the spring water as like a tonic, snake medicine, snake oil stuff, good for whatever's wrong with you. But at the same time, there was a lot of talc, that white chalky rock, and Smith took a few chunks home, and you can sand it, you can polish, you can carve it very easily. So that became his preferred method. He would use that very soft, easy to work material.
Didn't he actually carve with a jackknife mostly, just like a hand?
Yeah, but I don't think he carved this one to begin with. He must have used a jackhammer. Well, and then he would carve them to where he wanted them, get them just about right, but the talc is almost all white. And I'm not sure what all materials he used, but he had a firing process where he would get like a coffee can and fill it up with ashes and put the piece right in the middle of everything. And he would put it in the fireplace. You put it in the hot ashes and let it bake overnight. It was like firing ceramics. And so when that was done, he would take it out and just kind of rub it clean with his fingers and polish it, and it smoothed it out, gave it like a hard finish, and brought out some colors. So that was, as far as I know, that was the process. It was all done by hand.
I've heard a story that Smith would actually leave pieces in the woods to be discovered, or is that just an urban legend?
Well, I know of one case. Before the property was developed, we used to go out there, and it was just a field, the field, and maybe some remnants of the rock wall. I found a couple items that may have been related to Smith. An old wooden axe, it was rotted away, but there was the axe, the wooden shaft, and a few other things. When we were doing the boulder, the memorial over at Bicentennial Park, the plaque in the boulder, a fellow came up and he described, he was a poet, and he loved the idea of the park. He said, well, I'll sit in the park and write my poetry. But he had a metal detector, and this is the only firsthand I know. He said he was, running that around in the Smith property, and he showed me half of a sculpture that he found on the property. It was broken and had been discarded, but there it was a head and nothing else. It was like a Martian or something like that. So there is some truth to it.
Can you guys take your water bottles off the table for a second? April would like to get a picture before a more posed picture, so. Go ahead, April. Yeah.
Make sure you get his best side.
Just keep talking.
Okay.
It's the classic leave a Martian head in the forest so that
For someone to find.
scare the hillbillies. What's this?
Looks like he had a bad day.
Yeah.
I do think that it's interesting. As you were talking, I was thinking about how when I was growing up in Auburn, it just felt really hostile to creative people or weirdos or I don't know, just that was my experience, I guess. It's maybe not everybody, but and I was thinking that when the quote from the documentary said Auburn is a hell be damned and heaven be spitted place, and I was like, yeah, exactly.
Do you still feel that way?
I mean, it's fine, whatever. I can leave now, but that I think the isolation and it's like he met kind of the alienation and the hostility with like an ocean of creativity, and it's like really like constructive and beautiful, and even like a piece of rock, he's like, let me imprint my weird, my creativity on this, and it is cool to see this as like the first sort of raw, kind of not polished version, but then the other later versions are very beautiful and very sweet.
Right, he certainly, graduated from this. I can't imagine trying to polish this, is all I'm saying.
So for each of you, do you have a favorite piece of Smith art? And if so, can you describe it and why is it your favorite?
I'm fond of a piece he did called The Sentinel, which is actually one of the ones we have reproduced downstairs. Because most of his pieces, most of his existent two-dimensional drawings they're busts or they're small figures, and they're kind of grotesque. But and they actually remind me a little bit of Boris Artsebushef, who was an artist in the 30s. His name I can spell out if anyone wants to Google him and doesn't know him.
I can't pronounce it.
But it's not really what I think of when I read his stories. The stories are so much worlds, But his drawings seem a little simpler by comparison. But I like the Sentinel because you can see the figure standing on the balcony, and there's this whole alien city spread out beneath them. So it's a more complicated composition. And I'm kind of curious about the history of him. Maybe you know. Because then I know he did this illustrations of Lovecraft stories for Homebrew, but I'm unsure whether I heard all conflicting stories of whether he actually was professionally an illustrator for Weird Tales or not.
Some of his, I can't think of the story. He did illustrate a few of his stories that ended up in Weird Tales, and the harder I try to think, the more it escapes me. It did happen once or twice. But I don't know anything of the history of the Sentinel. Per se, but he did create some 18 to 20 illustrations for the Hashish Eater.
Oh, yeah.
Terrence McVicker has quite a few of them. I've heard tales of, there's one or two in it. And why they aren't all put together and in the same book as the Hashish Eater, I don't know. It's pretty obvious where the scenes are, that they've been reproduced, but the book has never been published, which obviously he intended when he created the drawings.
Yeah, I believe we have two of those Hashish Eater drawings paintings downstairs.
I like there's one I haven't seen before downstairs. I do love the Sentinel, but the one that has like a lot of heads, it's on this wall. It's from a story I can't remember, but I think that it's really interesting that Smith and Lovecraft have these opulent literary skills and the ability to tell these stories, but then their drawings are these very rudimentary. It's like they're kind of like I don't know, charming in that way, where that famous Lovecraft Cthulhu drawing, the side one. It's like so fun. Yeah, but like,
so right.
but I do think that it is like truly outsider art in the very distinct sense of just somebody who's alone with no connection to the world in a way, and kind of descending further and further into their kind of fantasy world, and then just not being concerned about how the fantasy is going to be received, because these drawings in their rudimentary way don't match his writing skill, but I don't sense any hesitancy or fear of being judged or anything. It's just like, I'm a weird art guy, here's my weird art, here's my sculpture, here's my writing, here's my thing, you know, it's just, I kind of love that, unabashed, just existing in that way. The heads are playful, and they have a kind of a similar vibe as that Matt Fox, you know Matt Fox, who did weird illustrations in the 20s, 30s, 40s, but he did like kind of a gleeful gremlin type art, and I feel like Smith's got some illustrations that are kind of in that same pocket of like mischievous goblin world, you know.
It seems like perhaps he would pick up a stone or a piece of whatever it was, and he would look at the shape, and then it just something would click, and then the hands just channeled. It's just like it just came out of him. Incredibly creative fellow, and maybe he did it for an escape. Like I think a lot of the fiction was just like he didn't love Auburn, and he did feel trapped there, and so he created his own other world that he could live in.
Yes,
All his own.
Ron, did you have a favorite piece?
Well, one of Smith's enchantresses, friends of a lady, Marilyn Novak, lived in Newcastle. When he moved out of town, he left her a trunk of materials, a few sculptures and some things, books. Her daughter, Marjorie Hill, lived in Nevada City. I got to know her. And I don't want to say Margie was a hoarder, but she had a lot of stuff. And when you walked through her house, there was little pathways going here and there. You had to be careful not to knock stacks of things over. But she had a lot of Smith stuff. You just had to find it. She used to tell me, I have this exquisite little pipe bowl head that Clark had carved, and she didn't know where it was. And she couldn't really describe it, but it was, she found it eventually in a little wicker, and there it was, and it's just about the size of your hand, and this little figure, and it's carved out, it's hollowed out like, this deep pipe bowl with a little hole on the back for the stem. There was no stem, but I didn't care. This thing was cool. Dark. I didn't bring it. I brought some pictures of it because I would probably have to kill myself if I lost it or broke it or anything happened. It's just that's how precious it is. I named it Poseidon. I don't know what was smoked in this bowl, but this guy looked like he had some. His eyes were squinty. He had this great smile on his face, and just intricate. The ears. It's a lovely piece. I named him Poseidon.
Awesome.
A very neglected Clark Ashton Smith's Evil God, I feel.
So, sorry, I was looking at the science fiction trend. That would be very amusing. I know, Ron, you came to do the fiction first, but for Skinner and Jason, how did you come across his art? Did you find it before his poetry and fiction, or did you find out he was an artist after you had gotten to it?
Fiction first, but I'm lucky in that my father was a collector of weird fiction, and he had some of the old Smith collections that had his art, his sculptures on the cover.
Oh, okay.
Including, I think, the 1973 chapbook Grotesques and Fantastics, which has a bunch of Smith's drawings and photographs. So I was always kind of aware of that side of him, and I think that technically he was much more skilled. I think technically his power as an artist really comes across in the sculptures, right? Because even when he takes these really simple designs from the art that are kind of simplistic when they're drawn out, it takes a lot of skill to sculpt that out in 3 dimensions,
Yeah, not everything has to be like a crazy, ornate, opulent thing. You're just like, no, this is what it would be like in that world, though.
Yeah.
It's primitive, it's weird,
Yeah.
and I think that it's being able to let go of any need to have it be anything else is sort of free, you know what I mean? Because like a lot of times I think the fear of creating something is because it's not going to be as good as something else or whatever. So, like, I just truly think it's really cool that we get to see this side of somebody, you know, especially somebody who's given us so much of their, I don't know, alone time, you know. And, but yeah, I mean, I would read Clark Ashton Smith stories. I really got into the wizards because I love wizards, and I see them as sort of like maybe synonymous with Clark Ashton Smith, because it's like an outsider, but an outsider who has his own kind of dominion going on, and so doesn't need to be a part of the world, you know. And so I was always hoping that there'd be more wizard drawings, you know. But yeah, I read all the stories, and then I think Darren even got me really into all the sculptures and the drawings and stuff, and so I was like, these are so beautiful. And now you see them, you can't, like, I don't know, not love them or wonder about what, you know, oh, he's just like, maybe he got a little bit of watercolor, and because it looks like the materials are very sparse, for sure. So I don't know. I've read the stories first, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So how has his art influenced you for Jason and Skinner?
With regard to his visual art, I mean, I love, in terms of stories, yeah, I mean, he's vital. I love his work. I love his writing. In terms of his visual art, I found his sort of idol, like, you know, sculptures to be really inspiring, and I kind of basically ripped some of them off and put them in the background of my Hyperborea comic, because he really does feel like he's drawing like these, you know, artifacts of the world that he's depicting, you know. So it seems to fit. So yeah, I admire. They have a really kind of, you know, fake, primitive, kind of mystic beauty, and it's really such a shame that he died in the early '60s before he could really encounter the you know, the New Age movement and all the weirdness that was about to spring out like just 10 years later.
Yeah, I was reading through your Hyperborea when I first got it, and I said, oh, I recognize that. There's all the sculptures, a lot of sculptures in the background are Smith's original work that you put in there.
Yeah, they're very iconic.
Mm-hmm.
They're easy. You become fans of them. You know, their characters so
Right.
intense. I mean, I kind of like, I guess I consider what I do to be kind of an amalgamation of like Clark Ashton Smith ideas and Jack Kirby illustration and weird, you know, so it's people who are on the outer edges of time and space, you know what I mean? But I think that his writing influences me a lot more, I think, about just the way I approach my art in illustration, because it's so unhinged and anything can kind of be, that it's a reminder of the amount of freedom that I should allow myself if I want, you know.
Well said.
Why try to recreate something or duplicate something that's already been done? Why would you copy something when you can just make something completely individual, and that's exactly how it's supposed to be. It's unique. There it is.
Just like the Smith Circle. You come to the Smith Circle when you're ready. You don't need any more. You know, just like Rowan Olson said. Smith stories are frequently said to be even more unfilmable than Lovecraft's because of the wild and weird environments. But in any kind of animation, the only limitation is the talent of the artist. What was the process for you to adapt Smith's stories into an animated form, and were there any special considerations?
Well, I did a comic. I've done a Smith comic. I've considered doing some others, because actually my favorite story evolves to 7 pieces. But I did. I also love the Testament of September Zero, so that's the one that I have done so far. I mean, I really just wanted to. I really am into the setting and the environment, and you know, I think that it's these elaborately unreal settings that make Smith. Those are most of my favorite things about Smith, because although he also did like the present day horror stories occasionally, I mean it's Hyperborea and those which are really the most far out and my favorite settings. So I just wanted to I wanted to just depict that world and just fill it with that sort of that, you know, opulent and like lush greenery everywhere and you know, treasure from ruined stone and stuff. And and the other thing I like about Smith's work is it sort of, like I think some earlier panelists were saying, it kind of draws from heroic fantasy, but it also like really stabs you in the gut. Everyone always dies, and it's always so nihilistic and depressing. There rarely anyone lives. So I appreciate that about. I appreciate that it doesn't really feel like a power fantasy in the way that sort of sorcery often does. It's more like maybe it's the author's power fantasy because he gets to kill everybody. But you know, it's those are things I like about Smith. Why I'm drawn to him.
Well, I had Cody Goodfellow help me do my comic adaptation because I really trust Cody, you know, because he has so much love for the source material. And then I was like, well, here goes. This is kind of audacious, I guess, you know. And then I was like, well, I kind of set my expectations at like, okay, try to make it look cool, you know. And then I hope that's good enough, you know, and then try to build from there so that I wouldn't feel discouraged by the time it was over because it's not as cool and weird and insane, you know. But I have done like some animations and some short films and stuff that whenever I'm doing them, they are not Smith adaptations, but I am constantly kind of pushing the aesthetic into where I would like to go with an adaptation eventually. So they're all kind of like preparing. Nobody knows except us. When if you see it, you go, oh, okay, yeah, I see. But I'm always like, okay, like this otherworldly thing, and this is the weird vegetables around and the flowers, you know. And so I'm really hoping to try to do an adaptation. I tried to convince Phil Tippett to do one time, and he was like, that's dubious at best, you know. I was like, come on, man, you know, and but it would have been sweet, right? Anyways, I'll do it one day, whatever. But so yeah, I'd like to do like I would love to film like the Double Shadow or something, or I mean, for me, to see like a Phil Tippett like or a stop motion adaptation of like Maze of the Enchanter or something, you know, would be insane. I would love that.
Can I ask, was that the name story you pitched to Phil Tippett, Maze of the Enchanter, or was there? We'll all forget it afterward, we promise. So
No, I mean, I was kind of trying to pitch him on Seven Kisses because I knew that he likes to do those critters and stuff. So, you know, I was trying to scam him and I know what he liked to do, you know, he's like, I don't know. But all the other animators at Tippett were like, that would be awesome, or whatever. I was like, talk to him, man, talk to him later.
Certainly a lot of material in that particular story, you know.
Yes.
Different pieces.
Yeah, one puppet for the hero. That's fine. That's one. Keep the cost low. Yeah. But anyways, he don't listen to me.
So for all three of you, which story would you like to either illustrate yourself the most or be seen, have someone else illustrate?
Well, Seven Geeses, but Skinner's done such an awesome job. I'm also really fond of The Testament of Othmaeus. That's the one where the whole city is just, spoiler of a 100-year-old story. That's the one that the whole city is. Okay, yeah, I love that story because that's another one where it's just like Seven Geeses, just keeps going more over the top and more over the top, and more crazy stuff happens. But that was a little. I mean, actually, gosh, I mean, it was nearly 20 years ago that I did this comic, and so I mean, at the time I was actually a little shy because there's a lot of sadism in that story. I was like, well, do I really want to draw this person getting tied up and tortured? I probably would now, but I don't have it'll, you know, I got a couple other things to do first.
I think the Dark Eidolon would be cool. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's the one I was thinking of, not Testament of Othmaeus. It's the Dark Eidolon.
There you go. But you could do it. You could do it. But yeah, I think Dark Eidolon with there are a couple of moments I really, really love that I feel like you could contrast really well in an interesting way, like how Alan Moore did some of the Swamp Thing stuff where it's like the layout's really crazy and you could have some montage of memories to when the main necromancer is like, hit by the horse and all this stuff, but then at the end he's just got all these skeleton warriors and mummies and creatures going out and intimidating, the other king. But I don't know. I think that would be cool. I mean, it's insane to take on. Probably gonna leave it up to him. I did already pay the artist Enrique Alcatena to do an adaptation of Empire of the Necromancers for my 4th issue of my comic. Yeah, oh yeah.
That guy is incredible.
Wow. I know. It is a lot of money, so I don't know what's gonna happen.
When's it coming out?
Oh, dude, the 3's almost done, so yeah, I need a little time. Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm not an artist. I have very little skill in that. Well, there's a story there, but so I'm going to extrapolate just a little bit because the Colossus of Elorn.
Yes.
I want to see that a movie.
Yes.
I want to see it. I mean, it's not that impossible. It's gothic. I mean, you've got the giant running around, destroying people in towns. You've got, The Walking Dead. You've got gothic cities and towns being trampled. It's just like got a little bit. You could introduce a little bit of romance. Why not? Hollywood's gonna do it.
Vincent Price, an old Vincent Price, the Colossus of Elorn.
Yeah.
Come on, that was.
That's what I would like to see. I think the Hollywood, maybe not Hollywood, somebody, Stanley, somebody could do this movie.
Ron, have you heard that the HP Podcraft, former HP Podcraft people did a Colossus of Elorn audio play, an hour?
There was I've seen some pictures, but no, I didn't know that.
This was an audio play, but
It's a remake.
rewrote it, and it's actually very funny. I just recently listened to it. It's very funny. A lot of effects, sound effects and voice acting, like 10 or 15 people doing it.
Right.
It's very good. Let me say one thing. Colossus of Elorn, done in Ray Harryhausen style. That would be it. The monster, the slightly jerkiness, and the corpses and everything. So
I can see the commercials. Boom, boom.
Right.
Coming soon.
Exactly.
And then maybe show an ankle,
Right, exactly. So I see you guys brought a couple of books. Do you want to kind of talk about what you brought?
Oh, go ahead. You don't
I have no
books.
books.
Okay. Well, no. So here's my Skin Crawl magazine. This is my horror anthology that I made during the pandemic, so that I wouldn't just drink whiskey and eat pie and lay on the ground or whatever. My wife was encouraging me to do something. So I have the 70 issues adaptation here. I'm very proud of it. It's really cool. It's crazy. This is cool. Look at that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, heck yeah.
That is cool.
But
And that, as you mentioned, that was written by Cody Goodfellow.
he did the adaptation, right. And then he helped me with some of the other stories and stuff too, and everything. But on the cover of this, I find this to be a really interesting image, which is the cover that Clark Ashton Smith did, where it's this sort of journeying guy in an alien land, and he's just calmly kind of sitting on this cliff overlooking this stuff. It's so interesting because his illustrations feel very calm, and they feel very meditative, which is the opposite of his writing. And so I think this is a beautiful juxtaposition of that. And
I think, isn't that piece called The Spy?
I believe so.
Yeah, so it's just interesting, what is he spying? So,
what's this dude's name again? This artist? He did the best.
Pennington?
Oh yes, Bruce Pennington. If you want to see the coolest horror paintings and drawings of some Lovecraft stuff, with some Clark Ashton Smith stuff, Bruce Pennington is unmatched with the colors and weirdness of what he does. And then this is the book of Clark Ashton Smith's stuff in the realms of mystery and wonder. This is his poems and photos of all of his sculptures. But they're totally iconic. I recommend getting this book if you can, but like, this is my favorite. This like weird penguin. But like, you just look at this and you're like, yeah, I don't want to see that thing, because this is good. If they're probably gonna, you know, if I'm on a planet with penguins, they're gonna eat me, right? They're gonna get me. They're gonna get us.
They're gonna chase us down.
We'd be a good team.
Right.
But like, look at all this. It's like weird, like alien anthropology. You know what I mean? And
it is.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I love it. It reminds me of why I'm alive, why I should be here, why I should continue to antagonize Auburn, California. Yeah, I mean, I don't live here anymore, but I cruise back every once in a while, you know. And then they can't wait till I leave.
I have such appreciation for you guys with that type of talent. A little bit off topic, but I can get this over quickly. I was like in the 2nd or 3rd grade, the teacher came in and said, okay, today you guys get to do, she brought in some construction paper and some crayon and everything. You guys get to do whatever you want. Do anything you want. I didn't think about it. I went up, I got a big black piece of construction paper and some white chalk. And I just, like that. And then I got orange and yellow and red, and I just colored. So it was totally abstract, you know, and just different, you know, in form and color. And that went up on the wall, and everybody else was, you know, dogs and swings and trees. And my thing stood out like, you guess what? And from across the room, and I was proud of that thing. You know, it looked nice. And it wasn't the same as it. It was all great. And then a couple days later, my folks got a call from the counselor. Is everything okay at home? Something's wrong with this kid, you know, and then they killed it right there.
This world doesn't deserve you, man.
Yeah, I never tried again. There's something wrong with expressing yourself.
Yeah. You are too free.
I
They
was
want to
not-
shut you down,
I was
man.
not normal, right?
You're the best.
Well, you know, I got over it. But yeah, I still remember that, you know, X amount of years later. I'm like, wow, what did I do wrong?
Nothing.
Okay, go ahead.
Jason, what did you bring?
I brought my notes of other Smiths adapted comics that have been done.
That would be interesting.
And this is some of my Lovecraft and Smiths comics that I've done. This is the Korean edition that a fan did. But yeah, this is my Dream Quest comic. Mostly, I'm really into the Dreamlands, and I'm working on a Dreamlands role-playing game right now that I'm writing and illustrating. So I've done a lot of those stories, but my one Smiths adaptation, September Zeros, gets the title, the cover treatment here. So yeah, but I did these a long time ago, so I wasn't even working. I wasn't working digitally. All of these are done on paper with Zipatone and whiteout on them, and all kinds of artifacts. I mean, I don't think if I left them in the woods like Smith's sculptures, they'd last very well. You know, I love that all those 1970s paperback covers, like the Pennington one. That's also how I read Smiths too. My dad had all of those, and I know that Darren Coelho, you have a lot of those on display downstairs. But yeah, I love those Ballantine books.
Sure.
Like the Bill Martin, I think it's Bill Martin was the artist who did the Hyperborea book, where the guy's going in the Seven Geeses, where the guy's going in the tunnel and you can see it's just like all these weird creatures one after the other. And
Colors, too.
Gabriel Gallardo,
yeah, okay, well, Fabrizio Gallardo, yeah, what a genius. Yeah. So, you know, this stuff is, it's very inspiring for me. And I've only really started to get into drawing in color, like, recently in a life sense, like in the last 10 years. Before that, I was all in indie comics, and it's too expensive to do color.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and sharing your art forms with us. Does anyone have any questions? Tyler.
Oh, as an aside, there's a forgotten 90s cartoon show called Mighty Max, and there is an episode that's an adaptation of Colossus of Ligorni. I was rewatching it and it kind of blew my mind. But one story that always kind of stuck with me with how I frame Smith's work is that when Thor Heyerdahl's Aku Aku, a book about Easter Island, the Kon-Tiki guy, came out, one of his friends noticed that in the pictures there's Thor Heyerdahl with all these little carven Easter Island heads they found in a cave, and they are a lock for like Smith's style. Just this idea that he was
like this guy,
that he was just kind of tapped into the same wavelength going
They
back.
seem authentic in a way.
Yeah, so authentic.
The collective consciousness.
Yeah.
within this. There's also that Dungeons and Dragons campaign that was kind of based on
Yes.
the Colossus
Yes.
of Ligorni.
which
Absolutely.
Goodman Games reissued recently. Yeah.
Very cool.
And I do love all those. Oh God, I mean, Smith's work's been adapted.
There's hardly any comic adaptations of Smith's, which is a real shame. But it's been adapted. You've seen so many drawings of his creatures for role-playing games. There's so many Thathaguas online, and the Bosasalas, starting with that Arrow Lotus one from the 70s for deities and demigods, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Arrow Lotus is my dungeon master, by the way. Not to flex on y'all, but he lives in Berkeley. We can get him here next year, maybe.
You don't mean
If there is another one, we should. By the way, this is amazing. I'm so pumped on this. Look at it. It's just nobody else in the world except us.
Well, as
Just
I mentioned,
kidding.
there were a number of people that contacted me over email saying, I would love to come, but, so there's way more than just us. I mean, we've got about 70 to 80 people here, loads more.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nils, I so appreciate what you've done here and all the work you went into it.
It's so special, like when things like this sort of start. I feel very honored to be in part of this like germinating thing. Yeah.
I think I may have missed the story about how this all started. A year ago, almost today, Tyler showed Darren's documentary at Beer's Books downtown.
Yeah.
And Joseph and Matt were there, and we were sitting around talking, and said, wouldn't it be great if?
Yeah.
So now it has. So it took a year to plan, and it's amazing that it actually went off. So, any other questions? I think I saw, David back there?
Yeah, two-part question. First, I was wondering, as an artist, I was wondering for you guys, what's your favorite art mediums to work in? And also, do you have any advice for other weird artists living in areas that don't appreciate weird artists?
Like Rockland.
I'll just go real quick. I love inking. I'm eternally trying to like become like Bernie Wrightson in some aspect, or Richard Corbin or something. I mean, I gotta figure out my own thing. I know, of course, but it's kind of like when you're in a band and you want to be like Black Sabbath, but you're not good enough. You know? Yeah, I would say for you, for your art, your relationship to your creativity comes first. Then deciding what you want to do with that relationship, and then figuring out how to sustain a healthy relationship with it if you want to make it like capitalist or not, you know what I mean? So I just think like keeping your eye focused on why you love something, because life is short and burn, reburn, everything. So it's like, that's what I would say. If you're trying to be a professional artist, just ask professional artists what they do, or kind of like look at their career and stuff. And you can ask me or ask him, or online or something.
I used to do everything pen on Bristol board, but in the past 15 years, I've pretty much now do all my work digitally on the iPad or wherever, because it's just so convenient. The shocking convenience of all those all those levels of being able to redo things, tweak things, and all the color effects you can do. I mean, it is hard to be balanced. It's hard to be an artist. I mean, it's great, wonderful to do art, but it's hard to know how much time to spend on it, and how to balance it with the other things that you need to do in your life, which may not be art. I mean, I spend probably too much time on social media, because of course it's very nice to be able to connect with those people. And I know a lot of people here I've met that I know from social media, and to get just to find the few people in the world from locked out of the internet who know about Clark Dunsany or Smith or whatever, and they get the instant gratification of having to instantly comment on your art and stuff. So that's very, and so that's powerful. But it is also very powerful. I think the older I get, the more I appreciate having friends that are local and close and that I can see in person. And that is something that you also can lose easily if you don't have a studio where you meet other people or a day job.
Let's hope AI doesn't infringe on art.
Yeah.
Do you
AI.
diversify your skill set? Like also being able to do things analog and digital is good,
Yeah.
and then you can go back and forth. And then you have to not have any kids and don't get in a relationship and then live in a shed.
Cool. Yeah, I think, is there another question over here? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Lovecraft has Cthulhu, Howard has Conan. Okay, what would be the visual icon of Smith if you had one?
Well, that's been decided already, which was a Sithagwa, I think, because a lot of people don't. Well, because they were referencing each other's creatures and mythos and stuff in each other's literature, I think a lot of people don't know that Sithagwa is a Smith creation. They kind of assume that it's like a Lovecraft thing, but on accident. But I don't know. Let's ask.
But, yeah, I would agree with Sithagwa is a good one, or some some wizard. There's an awful lot.
Yeah,
of-
Malagrease. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, Malagrease maybe.
Yeah, all those wizards are great. Malagrease is great. I'm a big fan of Sithadon from the Dark Eidolon.
Oh yeah.
Although he's more of an anthropomorphic, he's not like a. But when you look at Smith's carvings and drawings of Hagio, he looks a lot more human-like than I'd expect, right? He always drew him as sort of like this sort of fat guy with some elf ears, but so many interpretations of him where he just looks like this horrific monster, which is great. So
Not over super evil, but sometimes kind of laid back and
Yeah.
cool. He's
Yeah,
fat, he's
yeah.
fat, he's good.
Yep, I drew him as like kind of stoned.
Very brutalized. It is interesting that one of the interesting, unique differences between Lovecraft stories and Smith stories is Lovecraft has his gods off somewhere and they're gigantic and you go mad.
yeah.
Smith's gods, you walk up to them and talk to them and say, okay, what do you want me to do for you? And then, okay, I'll go do that geese. So they're as godlike as they are, they're just seem to be another being on the next level up of awareness or whatever. They're not so completely separated from humanity. Makes them a little bit more
Somewhat
personal.
approachable.
Yeah.
Yeah, a more direct
Mhm.
interaction with the uncertainty of the universe, Lovecraftian sort of
Mhm.
eternal screaming and being afraid or whatever.
Right.
It kind of reminds me of Jack Vance, actually, who was really influenced by Smith. And Jack Vance took his work in a more comedic direction. Like his early stories are very Smith-like, but then later on, when he did the later Dying Earth stories, it's much more satirical. And it really has all these scenes where like the guys in the grip of the evil demon idol, and the demon idol is like, well, I would like to eat you, but I just ate. I need to have I just ate and I can't. I'm too stuffed. So you need to wait here.
I'll be back. I like the Isle of the Torturers, and so the thing that I like, and I feel like I have this in common with Clark Ashton Smith, is a sort of mischievous nihilism, where I'm just like, everything is shit. And it's from growing up in a place where I had no access to culture, no access to freedom and openness and everything, and it was just sort of desolate. And so you learn to kind of have this, like a rejection of the place that you're in. So my mischievous nihilism kind of grew and grew and grew, but the Isle of the Torturers, it's funny if you were to recommend a story to somebody who is used to a formulaic idea about things. It's a bunch of bad things happening over time, and then it's over. And then just watch them be like, "What the hell is this? It's cool, huh, man? Check it out. It's great."
This is not going to end well.
Yeah, it's
then,
awesome.
then it gets even worse.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Becker? The sculptures seem to be kind of like personal or inspirational, and I'm kind of more of a reader fan, and so I'm just learning about the sculptures, and I'm really intrigued by them, seeing them in person. And it seems to me like that he didn't produce them to put them in sell them or put them on display per se, but they traveled around as gifts, or they maybe set on his own shelf as an inspiration. Is that what they were, or can you speak to that, their origin and how they ended up in?
I think at the beginning, it was busy work. It was somebody to keep his mind off of other things, and he was also being creative. He gave them away when he was first making. He gave a lot of them away, And then at some point, there became a demand. And then he realized, oh, I could sell these, so, and then he kind of went into business. He probably produced a couple hundred of them. And, August Derleth had, a couple dozen of them. And George Haas, his friend from Berkeley, had this one and another, a couple. It was always more. So I think it was just Smith had a need, compulsion to create. And at some point he realized, well, if I can put some food on the table or buy a bottle of wine, I'm going to sell this stuff too.
Yeah.
Go ahead over here.
Yeah, I know some of them were sold at Gumps for a while.
Yeah, there's a major department store in San Francisco, Gumps, that not only had an art store, but actually had some. And that was a good thing. Thank you for reminding me. Just want to mention another interesting thing about the library here is that they actually had showings of his art here on display. So that was another connection that he had for them.
His paintings and sculptures were displayed numerous places. Crocker Art Gallery in San Francisco, Sacramento. I did them a couple times. He got around. He didn't sell much, but they were exhibited.
Right. Yeah. Dwayne, go ahead.
Yeah, just as long as the August Derleth sculptures came up, I wanted to mention. Yeah, he had a bunch because he had 2 medium-sized boxes full of them at one time. And unfortunately, April was selling them off at a point, and then somebody stole all but one of them. So there are a lot of Smith sculptures out there somewhere. Nobody knows where they were stolen out of the art.
The hillbillies wanted their stuff back.
Maybe they got together and escaped.
Wait, did I buy that drawing from you in Necronomicon, the weird flower? Did you have it, or did you have it? I bought that from you?
Yes.
Thanks, man. I love it. It's
I
downstairs.
saw it down there every night. I stole that.
Yeah. That was awesome. Thank you.
Oh, if anyone hasn't been downstairs to the art room to see the originals of all these sculptures and drawings, some of from Ron's collection, definitely go down. I didn't even realize it was there until like an hour before this panel. So.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So please, the art room's probably going to be closing pretty soon. At least that large black box as you first walk in from the front door of the room. That's going to be leaving in about a half an hour. So, and then we're going to keep everything else up there as long as possible until we're done at 5, and then maybe a bit after. But then, of course, all the people. Speaking of which, since we're talking about art, I would like to thank Larry Bigman, Ron Hilger, S.T. Joshi, Dennis Rickard, Skinner, Darren Spring, Todd Warren, and Dwayne Olson. There were 8 different collections of people that brought stuff together to bring that together. So that was. Once we started talking about this, because of everything Smith did, that was the one thing that's most unknown, or at least unseen. That was a key thing I wanted to be able to do, was to bring as much art out to be able to show everyone what he did. And it was like you said, it was his alone time. It's something like that he did himself for himself, at least initially. And I was interacting with Darren at one point, and he actually brought it along, and to be able to hold that sculpture that Smith held in his hand at one point, carving it and shaping it and everything, that was an amazing connection to have. So, but don't take those sculptures out of the cabinet. So I think it's time for another break. We're going to finish off with science fiction in about 10 minutes.
Thank you, Nils. You're the best.